The new technology trains are basically the poster boys of the New York City subway system. Whenever someone thinks of the system, they usually think of the famous
"Stand clear of the closing doors, please"
announcement from Charlie Pellet. We've come to know and love those trains, but just how did they come to be? In this video, I'm going to be talking about the prototypes for the NTTs, the NTTTs, or the New Technology Test Trains. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this in the future. For this story, we must travel back to the 1970s and 80s and look at the disaster that was the R44 fleet. The R44s in a way served as prototypes for the R46 subway cars we currently see running on the A, C, N, Q, and W trains. They were the first NYC subway cars to be 75 feet long, featured a new braking system, and were equipped with automation systems. Many of these firsts proved to be issues for the NYCTA. Why? Well, let's look at everything I mentioned. The cars each being 75 feet long, with 4 doors on either side of the car, meant that these trains had 16 less doors per train set than the other 60-foot B division cars. This led to increased dwell times in stations, adding up to lengthy delays. The new P-wire braking system was a headache for the TA, partly because yard personnel were not adequately trained to deal with the new system. They were accustomed to the more traditional West Coast SME system, which you can find on cars like the R62 and R68 today. The P-wire system would occasionally unexpectedly activate the train's emergency brakes. This new system was installed in the R44s while the St. Louis Car Company was constructing them. The system was implemented as it would have helped with the TA's ambitions to run these trains automated along some routes, namely the 2nd Avenue Subway and the Queens Boulevard Super Express. Because of these issues, much of the subsequent rolling stock returned to a more traditional design, with less new and innovative tech. That was until the 1990s, when some of the Redbird fleet were starting to reach their retirement days. It was time for a replacement, and seeing how many of the other transit systems around the world were rapidly developing and moving into the future, the TA decided it was time to do the same. However, instead of repeating the same mistakes that happened with the R44s, with them practically using untested technology, costing them a fortune in the long run, with them having to make expensive retrofits, the Transit Authority ordered prototype test trains. First announced in 1989, the New Technology Test Trains, or NTTTs, were designed to test features that would be implemented on future mass production new technology train orders. These trains, given the designation of R110A for the A division and R110B for the B division, were introduced into service on June 15, 1993. The R110A test train, constructed by Kawasaki Heavy Industries, first entered service on the 2 line and boasted many features new to the system like AC propulsion, automated announcements, and passenger emergency intercoms. They also had new design features including wider 63-inch doors, which were over a foot wider than that of the previous A division fleet, the R62 and R62As. Those same doors were staggered for better passenger flow, lessening the number of people standing directly in front of the doors. Glass allowing for a clear view into the next car, except on cab ends. On the cab end of a car, there was a full-width cab with an actual clear view of the cab and the tracks ahead. A very bright interior designed by Massimo Vangeli with transverse seating and bench seating, unlike the previous A division subway cars in the system, which featured longitudinal bucket seating, LED and LCD destination displays, and much more. Fun fact, the R110As were supposed to be some of the first New York City subway cars to feature open gangways, but because of the impact it would have had on the project's price and schedule, the proposal was rejected and the cars were delivered in 2 5-car sets. Anyway, with the R110As being prototype test trains, they were never intended for long-term use. Because of this and other factors that we'll get more into later on, the trains only ran in revenue service until 1998, when they were placed into storage.
The next stop is Simpson Street.
The R110A's sister units, the R110Bs, were also prototype test trains. They were constructed by Bombardier Transportation, which was just recently merged into Alstom. These trains shared many of the same characteristics as the R110s on the A Division, with the exception of a few that resembled the previous B Division SME fleet. The R110Bs retained the bucket seating found on previous R-type subway stock, although it used a different material that allowed for the easy removal of graffiti. They also featured roll signs on the front of the train and LED screens on the sides, similar to that of the R46. This design was not carried over onto the new technology train orders, although it seems like the MTA regretted that decision, as the new R211 subway cars feature front LED signs that display the full line bullet, allowing for easier visibility. These trains, unlike the previous B Division rolling stock, which were 75 feet long, were 67 feet long. These cars were the same length as the old BMT standard cars. It is unknown why they were this length, but what is known is that it caused some issues with operations. These trains were configured in semi-permanent 3-car sets. To make a full train, you would need to couple 3 of these sets together to create a 9-car train. This came out to 603 feet, 3 more feet than the other B Division trains. Now on surface level, 3 feet may not seem like much of a difference, but because of that, the MTA needed to put in new conductor boards at each station along the lines it ran on, with those being the A and C. It ran in service for over 3 years on the A line until the day of November 4th, 1996, when a fire and explosion occurred on car number 3006. This resulted in one of the 3 sets being permanently taken out of service and stripped for parts to repair one of the cars and keep the other 2 sets operating. After this event, the train was coupled to 6 cars and ran in service until 2000, when it was permanently removed from service due to its high breakdown rate. The issues weren't exclusive to the R110B fleet. They were also present on the R110As, with those trains being taken out of service due to fire damage on some of the cars and brake issues, which made it more difficult for operators to stop the train accurately, which I actually made a video on. After being removed from service, some of the R110As became pump and generator cars, while the R110Bs were used as training cars for the NYPD and FDNY. Cars numbered 3002, 3003, 3007, and 3009 can still be found at the 207th Street Yard, and to this day, nobody but MTA personnel knows of the plans for those units. I hope you enjoyed this tale from the subway. These trains are basically the parents of the NTTs, and I think they were worth talking about in a video in this series. While they didn't last long in the system, they did pave the way to the system we have today. Wow, that rhymed. Well, that was unintentional. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you would like to get more from Mystic Transit, like, subscribe, and consider becoming a channel member.